Can you guys hear me?
Okay, they can hear me now. Apologies for that, everybody. Microphone bloody mistake. Right, I'm going to stay silent for 5 seconds and then we'll go again. Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 341, The Tate Modern. My name's Matthew Turner alongside Ashley Soden. How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. Kind of upset that the weather has fallen off a cliff here. We were having such nice days this past week with nice temperatures. It's got a bit more like usual England now, but at the same time, we now have the warmth of the entire draft class to sort of warm our hands by and fill our hearts.
Of course, yes, we are looking through the whole draft class in a bit more detail in a future episode. I think this time next week, we're going to be looking at the UDFAs, and rookie minicamp will have happened, so we'll be looking back at that too on this show. We're taking a deeper dive into the draft picks that we have, and then on future bonus episodes, probably pre-recorded, we're going to do some tape analysis of these guys as well. So lots to come. Many thanks at the top of the show for someone who donated to us just before we went on the air. Brent DeWitt, $5 super chat, says, "Howdy Kings of the North across the pond. Yours opinion, 2 rookie O-line starting. I say nay, feel better about Tesla. Rams were offering a second / Brads. Ash, 2 starting OL rookies?"
I would say towards no, just because of how this regime works. So, but I can definitely see one. Spoiler alert: it's probably the one everyone can see, but I can still see the other one contribute in a major way. And even if it is both of them, that's good, because that means they've beat out Mahogany, they've beat out Glasgow, they've beat out Awashika, they've beat out Natain Muti, who is seemingly the forgotten man on the sort of like 6-way guard battle. I'll be very happy with it if it does happen, because suddenly that's another steal in the draft. But yeah, in my head right now, it's Mahogany and Ratledge with Glasgow backing them and Fraser backing them up, and I'll be happy with that.
If someone asked me whether it's more likely that we had 2 rookie O-line starters or none, I would say none, rather than 2 being more likely. I think Glasgow and Mahogany starting is more likely than Fraser and Ratledge starting. But that said, I think 1 is probably the most likely scenario. Well, do I? I don't know right now between 0 and 1. I'd be pretty torn. But anyway, we'll get into that in just a moment. Just before we start, please do join our Discord channel. Link is in the audio description of the podcast or in the live chat of YouTube and Twitch right now. Great place to speak about Lions. And, I mean, hey, how about those Tigers? All off a football off-season long. College Football Podcast will be returning in about a month or so. I know Ant is hard at work compiling all of the rosters, all the portal transfers, and doing his conference previews in about a month's time, so looking forward to that. Please do like this episode and sub to the podcast, and go and support Lions Nation Unite as well. We're Twitch affiliated, YouTube monetized. There's a tip jar down below if you want to show us some love. News, very briefly before we get onto this class. The Lions are projected to get a 7th round comp pick for the 2026 NFL draft on the basis of their free agency gains and losses per NFL.com. They are, of course, getting a 3rd for Brad Holmes. Oh my God. Sorry. They're not getting a 3rd for Brad Holmes. They're getting a 3rd for, why can't I remember his name?
Aaron Glenn.
Thank you, sir. Of course, they have already traded that away. Mm-hmm. The Lions have cut their mandatory minicamp. They are the only team in the NFL to do so. This is thought to be due to the Hall of Fame game, which means that those 2 teams, then being themselves and the Chargers, tend to get their training camp extended. So we shouldn't lose any time. We're just moving when it is and all having it put into one. Some roster news. Unfortunately, the wide receiver Antoine Green has been waived with a failed physical. He, of course, had that horrible injury last year, was waived injured, but reverted to the Lions squad after he went unclaimed on waivers. He's been waived again. I suspect the same will happen again. I don't actually know what the procedure is for the 2nd time in a row, if I'm honest, but...
Nor do I, but the rumours are he will probably medically retire anyway because of that, because people might remember, obviously, it was the horrible concussion, whiplash injury, and then Dan came out and said, oh, yeah, there were some concerning things on the scans, and I know Riz in one of his pre-draft episodes for the DLP did hints that the team does expect him to medically retire from it, because it's one of them where he's got to choose between his long-term health and continue to play the game he loves. And unfortunately, it seems, well, I say unfortunately, he's made the right choice of the long-term health.
That, though, was high on him, but never mind. And the final bit of news we have, Kirby Joseph was obviously re-signed about the time that we aired the show last week, but just after, actually, I think. But the details of his contract have been released, and they are exceptionally team-friendly in a very Philadelphia Eagles way. The restructures are built into the contract with multiple options every single year. It does mean if the Lions want to get out of the deal before an option hits, that is actually quite palatable. Of the $88.8 million cap hit, almost half of that comes in the first void year in 2030. He is not above $18 million a year at all before then, when he's spent to be under contract. This leaves the Lions open to effectively re-sign him before the void years hit and avoiding all of that cap hit and spreading it out in the future deal, or trading him before that point, or letting him go if his play doesn't live up to the deal. But as it is, they've paid him a league-leading amount of money, and he's getting actually peanuts on the cap.
Yeah, exactly. And like, if it wasn't like this, if it was a bit more like a traditional contract, everyone knows, I'd still love it, because obviously, as his biggest fan in the world, I love him anyway. But yeah, the way they've done this with the option bonuses, yeah, we're learning from the only GM really right now that can maybe make an argument to be on the same level as Brad, if not above him, in Harry Roseman. We see him do this even just before the Kirby one with Cam Jurgensen's contract, their centre, using his sort of team option bonuses and the way they kick in. So yeah, even though he's supposed to be getting like 21 and a half AAV, he's not getting more than 20, as you say, that 20 until that sort of last sort of year where everything kicks in with the void year where he's getting 40. So it does seem that, yeah, with the way the bonuses work and that it keeps all options open to us. But obviously the most palatable one maybe for all sides is by the time you get to the start of those void years, you sign him to a new extension because he's probably continued that level of play, we hope. And you just kick those sort of void years into like that sort of cap it into that new contract, spread it out even more, and it's even more nice and palatable. But yeah, it's the best way for Kirby to get his league leading deal, get all like the sort of figurehead figures that always seem to come out with his contracts, while the team still is able to keep the cap hits nice. And the best thing about it is, when do those cap hits start hitting and really hurt? 2029, when there's supposed to be a new TV deal and a new collective bargaining agreement, where the cap's supposed to absolutely rocket up. So by the time you get to there, even if you do start getting to those numbers, the extension then, it will look like pennies to the dollar, because the amount of money probably going into the NFL at that point, the cap, I think I've seen one place is projecting it to be about 350 to 400 million by then, which is insane considering it's about 240 right now. That's a massive jump.
It is a huge jump. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm torn between what will happen with this, between thinking that someone might trade for him and he might get cut and he might get an extension. With the amount of money that's on the table, I think even with good play, all of them are going to be on the table, because in 2029, he's being paid $18 million on the cap. As a safety, that's a huge amount of money. There are very few corners being paid $18 million. So by the time you get to 2029, maybe the safety market gets there, but I would highly doubt it. I think the top of the market, I think like the tag at the moment for safeties is something like 15 million. So that's 20% above the cap rate already. So I think it's unlikely he plays on the 2029 amount of money. I think if an extension comes, it'll probably come after the 2028 season to spread things out even more. Or the team will then review whether a trade or a cut needs to happen at that point. I think it's the first time after 2028 where you make some serious cap savings for getting rid of him as well, especially before the option kicks in. So I think that's the pinch point in this deal, is 2028. Yeah.
Maybe the thing that works in our favour is obviously by then Branch will have his extension done, so that probably might change things. Carl Hamilton probably will, plus there'll probably be another few guys who again will get extensions because they're unhappy with the amount of money getting, or people might explode. Who knows? Like, I'm trying to think of someone off the top of my head as a rookie safety,
Mm.
but like last year. But that kind of like the Cooper DeJean, for instance, if he gets paid as a safety, it'll get by then. It's what happened with Penne. Well, this time, like we signed him to it just before the draft, and then by the time it rolled around to this draft, he's like the 5th highest paid tackle. Just how the league works, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right, let's get on to our first player, and drafted at 28 overall from Ohio State is the defensive tackle Tyleik Williams. A bit of a surprise that he came here. And now I will say at the top of this before we go into it at all, we're not going to be talking about trades. We're not going to be talking about whether they should have taken anyone else or not, or whether we really liked the pick at that point. That discussion has kind of been had. At this point, it's about the player. How do they fit? What do we see in them? All that sort of stuff. So if you have those takes, great. Would love to hear them. Put them in the chat, but it's not going to form part of the conversation we're going to have, just to try and focus really on the players that we have now, and not the why and the how and the who we kind of gave up in order to get to that person. So Tyleik Williams, 6'3", 327, was a 4-star recruit from Virginia, played for Unity Reed High School. First team All-State honors and selected to play in the Army All-America Bowl. Arrived as a freshman at 360 pounds. He has trimmed some significant weight off that frame. He was a record-breaking shot putter in high school as well, and was number 66 on Bruce Feldman's Freaks list for one of the years, but I didn't note down when. He was a 2021 freshman All-American and a 2023 second team All-Big Ten. In terms of the RAS score, he hasn't got one because he didn't actually participate in a lot of the drills. He was actually 6.027 and 334, I presume that was at the combine. Did run some splits, but only a 10 and 20 yard dash. 10 was 174, which is 7.56, and 277 was 9.72. So extremely fast over those first 20 yards.
And then he fell over and hurt his hamstring, which is why he didn't do any of the rest of the testing.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Okay, so he is commonly thought of and has been projected by the majority of people to be a nose tackle, either playing at the 0 or 1 technique. He basically has never played there. I think it's worth making that point. Despite his weight, Ohio State played him almost exclusively at 3 technique. And I think why a lot of the media out there are trying to say, oh, he reminds me of Aleem McNeil, is because he was playing Aleem McNeil's position, and at least where we try and project Aleem to play. So when you're trying to stylistically see the fit, even though people are saying, well, a guy of that size has got to play a bit more inside than he has done at college, everything that we're going to talk about has happened at 3 technique, which is, I think, quite an interesting foil for this conversation. So his Ohio State career, he was a 4-year player there. 136 tackles, of which 56 solo, 28 tackles for a loss, 11.5 sacks, 10 passes defense too, a forced fumble and a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Of those figures, in 2024 he had 46 tackles, 16 of which solo, 8 TFLs, 2.5 sacks, and a pass defense. Watched a couple of games of his, and what I can say about what the majority of the media coverage have about him and his playing style, I think is probably quite realistic. So he does not play like the majority of defensive tackles you will see out there, especially nose tackles. You know, if you think about big, hulking defensive tackles, nose tackles, they basically anchor up, absorb pressure, maybe take on a double team, and just hold the point of attack. Tyleik doesn't do that, and it's what makes him such an interesting evaluation, because I do think, because of the way he plays, the floor might be quite low. I think a lot of people are coming and saying they think the floor is probably quite high, but I think if the way he plays doesn't work in the pros, because I don't know many people that play like him, if it doesn't work and he has to relearn what to do, that's going to hurt his projection quite a bit. Now, I'm actually quite bullish on the way that he plays and the fact that it might work, so I don't think that floor is actually going to become a reality, to be honest. So, to actually tell you how he plays, he defends the run like most people defend the pass. He tries to get upfield with explosion and reset the line of scrimmage. So his aim is to push the guard that he's lining up against most likely, because he's in 3 technique. Obviously, it'd probably be against the centre in the pros if he does kick inside. He wants to make them be a yard or 2 backwards. And actually, for that, I suspect that his tackles for a loss could be quite high. Just naturally, because he's fighting so hard to get upfield like that. If he does make tackles against running backs who are running up the gut, he's going to be tackling them behind the line quite often. And he does that because he's got a really good explosion off the line. He's got a great punch. He works with great pad level, despite the fact that, he's a fairly big guy. He often gets under people, and that's really impressive. And that's, clearly what makes him different, especially for people of his size. For someone who is, it used to be 360 pounds, was 334 at the combine, played at about 325, 330. He's far more explosive than you think he's going to be. And as a lot of people have said, that hasn't translated into pass rush technique yet. I'll stick on the run at the moment, and then I'll go into pass rush. Against the run, he is exceptionally good with his horizontal agility. It means that not only can he hold his block and actually run with the offensive lineman into gaps that running backs are trying to get into to kind of fill a gap with another player, but it does mean that he can actually get off blocks quite quickly to fill gaps adjacent to him, and that allows him to 2 gap and 1 gap quite easily. So if you were playing gap and a half like we used to play, I think he'd be very adept at doing that. He clearly is a very good 2 gap player. He plays with really good sort of wrestler style technique when it comes to positioning the players that he's against. So if he needs to 2 gap and he's trying to be fenced off one way, he's going to be able to grab the offensive lineman and effectively readjust him so he's back in the way again. So very, very impressive against the run. My concern is that when he comes up against quality offensive linemen, what happens when he comes up against someone just as strong as him or has better technique than him? If he's kind of coming upfield with that explosion, can that be exploited? Can an offensive lineman kind of, if the run is just maybe a gap one side of him, can he almost be helped on his way a little bit and almost run past the play? Can he be taken advantage of maybe because his momentum is just a bit too forward? Can he be almost not tripped up, but like pushed down a little bit, or like lose your balance, that sort of thing? I kind of think there might be a reason why people don't play like this, and yet so far for him it's worked. So the proof is there so far, but we'll see going forward. In terms of pass rush, it's limited. It is. He will. I think a lot of his pass rush production is going to come from stunts, which he actually runs quite well because of his horizontal ability to be agile. If you want to stunt off him or have him stunt off someone else, that actually works okay. But when it comes to trying to beat people, he can't beat an offensive lineman that has a good anchor. He just doesn't have it in him at the moment. And I think that's going to come with more consistent hand usage, with just trying to add a couple of moves to his arsenal, which he just doesn't have right now. His pass rush arsenal is exceptionally limited. And it can mean that if you have a team that predominantly plays pass, which of course, is a lot of the league right now, if you come up against teams like San Francisco, who obviously they're going to be running away from him a lot in wide zone, or they're going to be running play action passes, or if you have a look at someone like the Rams or teams built like that, you may find that he's a non-factor in games a little bit. So he's going to be a work in process in that regard. But just as a player, from when we drafted him to now, I feel more optimistic about what I think is going to happen with him. 1, because of the injuries on our team. 2, because of the long-term need at that position. I think it's an astute pick. I think he fills gap. The way that he's going to fill that gap is a way that we need. We value what he does more than other teams do, so I like the fit. He seems like he's got lots of grit. He's got an excellent motor. He never seems to take a snap off. I really enjoy his energy. So an interesting player. Ash, Tyreek Williams.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I know obviously you watched 2 games for him, which was the Iowa game in week 6 this year and then Texas in the playoffs. I watched in particular because I tried to look at something a bit different. The first game against Oregon this year, where I saw quite a lot the same. So surprisingly, in this game, they actually used him a bit of 4 as well, which Obviously, it's very similar to free tech. It's just like half a step over. It's just instead of being on the outside shoulder of the guard, on the inside shoulder of the tackle, just gives you a different angle. But I saw pretty much the same thing. So the last with agility. So there was one play where he does that, where he sees outside zone, moves across, isn't sort of stopped going upfield, and then goes upfield when he finds the right gap. But at the same time, when he did get that penetration, there was a couple of times it used against him. One of which was one of the touchdowns that Dylan Gabriel scrambled for. It was him getting penetration, but it was a read option. Gabriel fakes the handoff to the back. Tyleek goes with the back to try and tackle him, but Gabriel still got the ball. He's still got an open gap, and he scrambles for a 30-yard touchdown. So even in college, there was those games where teams use his own aggression against him, but for the most part, because of just the way he plays, the way that Ohio State kind of used him, and also the film study, which is something that you've probably heard, that older listeners have probably heard about time and time again from all these breakdowns of Tyleek. It shows. So there was one where that he could just sort of see that it was going to be a QB sneak. He reads it really well, but the linebacker who's kind of supposed to crash into where the gap that he's vacated. So he's gone from his sort of free tech position. He's kind of angled in a bit, so then angled outwards. So then the linebacker who's coming to crash in hopefully would then fill the gap that he's just created to stop the QB sneak. Just doesn't get there in time, the linebacker, and so they convert it. The other issue I saw with him that he needs to probably work on, and luckily we've got one of the best defensive line coaches, someone who's worked with Vita Vea, who is someone, again, that for a nose tackle has that kind of penetrating attacking style to him. Casey Rogers worked with him. Both one of the things I can remember from Vea coming out, and Tyleek's also got it, is because of that explosion, sometimes he does pop up too high, and that just leaves his leverage. So again, there was one in a goal line set where he just got too high in his fundamentals and he got pancaked. But for the most part, this is a ready-made run defender. He's one of the best in the class. I've looked it up. His average depth of tackle was 1.5 yards. So for every tackle he's making, on average, it's 1.5 yards in front of the line of scrimmage. That is tied for 5th in the draft class, with the only sort of big name sort of tackle, defensive tackle in front of him being Darius Alexander with a 1.2 yard average depth of tackle. This is someone who uses the penetration, can get the sort of tackles for loss, and there's enough there for the pass rush Arsenal to be built up. I did see him hand fighting quite well a couple of times. He does have a sort of swim move that he does try to use, but Casey Rogers, who's the guy who took Vita Vea from that kind of similar position into arguably the best nose tackle in the league, him and Sexy Dexy probably fight out for that sort of spot nowadays. This is the guy that turned Vea into that. So giving Tyleek this ball of clay, who initially will probably start a free tech for us, fill in the Aleem role, but from next year we'll probably fill in for DJ Reader, to be honest. That's our defensive line set for the next foreseeable future with him and Aleem, which I love, because that's the identity of this team, is the defensive line.
Yeah. All right, time to move on to our next guy, picked in the second round at 57 guard. Tate Ratledge from Georgia. Ash, your guy.
Yep. So I know, obviously, you broke him down for us in our offensive line breakdown. So episodes of people, go listen to that as well. You get probably another look at him, because I, again, looked at different games. So I know Matt in that game, that breakdown looks at the Week 12 game against Tennessee. Me, again, trying to be different. I looked at the game against Kentucky this year, where he got a 71.2 offensive grade, 81.5 pass blocking, 69.8 run blocking grade. It was also the game he only played 17 snaps, because this is the game he had his injury in, but it's just another one that Cadiz had. I didn't even choose it because it was the injury one, but it's just how it worked out. So Ratledge is Georgia's right guard, obviously 6'6", 308 pounds. He's a super senior, 24 years old, spent all 5 years of his career at Georgia. His RAS, 9.96 with elite speed and explosion, good size, and then did not qualify for the agility, just didn't do the tests. And he has an arm length of 32.25 inch arms. Bit small, but it's workable. This past season, he played exactly 500 snaps, 311 pass blocking, 189 run blocking. All but 2 came at that right guard spot, and then the other 2 were at left guard. So this is a guy who's predominantly at guard. 74.4 overall grade offensively, 77.3 pass blocking, 74.7 run blocking, and then a 64.7 special teams grade. He did play 38 special team snaps, all of which were on the field goal kicking unit. So that translates. Allowed 7 pressures this past year, 1 sack, 2 QB hits, and 4 hurries, and then also conceded 2 penalties. The Kentucky game, no pressures allowed, no penalties conceded. Despite what PFF said in terms of their grades, his run blocking is his superpower, not his pass blocking. So he fires off the ball really well. And then on the first play of the game, he's lined up against Zion Walker, the absolutely massive nose tackle for Kentucky. And he just blows him backwards in literally first play of the game, which I'd love to see. And then on the second play, climbs to the second level to find work, but unfortunately did get beaten by the linebacker who saw him coming and kind of just avoided him. And that was Jackson Johnson, the linebacker I really likes on day 3. So love to see that as well. With the firing off the ball, constantly drives his legs while blocking. So that was the 6th play of the game. You can really see that he's got his guy. He's just pushing him back. And then on the 10th play of the game, yes, I did cancel the plays because since he got 17, it was quite easy to do. Peeled off a double team on Dylan Walker, the nose tackle, to block a crashing linebacker. Does really well and just pancakes him, which is great to see. The next play, he chips Walker while climbing to the second level, but again, he's unable to get to the linebacker just because they've got that bit of agility. They're able to beat him. Next play does the same to the defensive tackle rather than the nose tackle, but the same results. The 15th, the Kentucky do sort of like tackle stunts. So obviously, people who listen to the Pride of Detroit breakdown with Morgan and Miko, you've probably heard a lot about stunts on the Rattledge episode, which I know they had to re-upload today because of the copyright issues. So obviously, you probably heard about end tackle stunt where the defensive end goes first to tackle. This was the tackle one where the free tech looped and then Walker went round. Rattledge saw that coming, just deals with it really well. And then on the last play, really good blocking on the inside zone play, clears out his defensive tackle, and then unfortunately does kind of get pushed over by a coming linebacker, is at the bottom of the pile, and that's when he got injured. As for his pass blocking, he's able to execute his double teams really well. So he does that on the 3rd play of the game. On the next play, the 4th, he's able to avoid holding on the defensive tackle. He's got him. The tackle spins away, and Rattledge sort of reading that, let's go, make sure not to concede the holding penalty, and then tries to move to try and block him off that way instead of holding him. Really good to see that kind of awareness that he might get called for a penalty if he keeps holding on because of the spin move. Let's go. Really good. The 7th play of the game, which was kind of close to George's own end zone, they run a screen. And the way that he sort of disguises that it's going to be a screen by acting as if it's a run with the execution of his block. Really love that as well. That sort of the subtleness between his pass sets and his run sets, using that to key off on the defense and sort of trick them was really good. As for stunts, on the 8th play, he's not fooled by one of the tackle end stunts. So the tackle looping inside outwards, the end crashes in towards him, stands his ground, shrugs off the rusher. Really good to see. The next play, so the 9th one, same again. He's able to move side to side to shield Carson Beck, the Georgia QB, who I now hate for life because he's gone to Miami. He's able to sort of side to side lateral, using that his sort of agility to shield off Beck. 13th play, does his assignment and trusts his running back. So Etienne, who obviously got picked in this draft class, trusts him to manage the blitzing linebackers lined up right against him. He's like, I've been told on this play, I've got to block the defensive end. I'm going to do that. You better have your guy. Trust it. Probably something the team really likes because we all know what they're like with missed assignments. On the 14th play, he's not engaged by anyone. His head's just constantly looking around. He's looking right. He says, someone coming right. I'm going to climb now. And then on the 16th place, the last one before he got injured, he deals with Walker one-on-one really well. And then his right tackle comes in to help him, sort of chip him, which was really nice to see. So obviously he did get injured on that 17th snap where he sprained his ankle and he got a knee injury and he had typhoid surgery on it, which ruled him out for a good couple of games. He does have some injury issues. That's his biggest knock, is obviously that he's a bit injury prone, but hopefully with the step up to the pros, bit better with the sort of regime, maybe he might be able to deal with that a bit better. So I've got 3 comparisons for him. One from Raz, which is athletic comparison, which is Evan Mathis, the former guard. He was a 3rd-round pick in 2005, one-time first team All-Pro, 2-time Pro Bowler, and also Super Bowl champion with the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 50. PFF compared him to Dalton Reisner, who you might remember playing on the Vikings last year. For me, perhaps a slight step down in terms of reputation, but Robert Hunt, the former Miami Dolphin, who now plays for the Carolina Panthers, obviously last offseason signed the biggest ever guard contract with them, $100 million, all this. But the sort of play styles there, he's a much better run blocker than his pass blocker, just absolute road grade of a guy, just that kind of guy. And that's his fit here is that potential starter at right guard week 1. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets that job in training camp, and then he just holds on to it throughout his rookie contract and beyond, obviously barring a potential career-ending injury. But he's just that good, in my opinion, at that sort of right guard spot, what we look for it. Think what Zeitler did for us last year. I know the Raz says that he's got the athleticism. It does come across in some plays, especially to climb to the second level, linebackers can fool him. So that's maybe why he didn't do the agility testing. But for that right guard spot, Ratledge is the perfect sort of slot-in pick.
Yeah, obviously you guys know that I was a massive fan of his. He was one of the guys I listed on our draft forfeits. If we drafted him, I had to do some penalty alcoholic shots. We did draft him. I did double the number of shots I was meant to do. Whoops, that was a very messy day. But I love his attitude, the way he carries himself.
Yeah.
There's lots to fix. The Pass Pro is not a finished product, and he can just be beaten by a very quick first step. There are a lot more of them in the NFL than there are in college. So let's see what happens with that. But him and Penne in the run are going to be absolutely unbeatable, running behind that. So, you know, you have to decide what's important to you, whether you want the floor of the Pass Pro or whether you want the ceiling of the run blocking, because that's the argument you're having with him. If they decide that the run blocking is more important than the Pass Pro, then Ratledge has got the inside track to the job for me. If not, then Graham's going to have it. So we'll see what happens, because I do think Mahogany is going to be the one with the fairly safe spot, and it's going to be Glasgow versus Ratledge for the other. But we shall see. It's just a gamble with my point on that one. But he's someone that just loves making defenders miserable, and you know, we're all about that here. But anyway, let's move on, shall we, to our third player. One I know that will be debated until the end of time because of how it happened, and maybe not about the player for himself. But that is what we're going to focus on, and it is Isaac Teslar from Arkansas. Ash, your guy again.
Yep. Again, I'm up because, again, someone that Matt profiled for us in our wide receiver episode. So for an ultra deep breakdown on him, TikTok, Instagram, go back to the wide receiver episode. So he's the Arkansas wide receiver, where's number 4, 6'4", 214 pounds, again, super senior, 23 years old. Started off his career at Hillsdale before transferring for his last 2 years at Arkansas. His RAS, 9.93, elite speed and explosion. Size and explosion, great agility, good speed. This past season, he earned a 69.1 offensive PFF grade, 70.5 receiving, 88.6 drop grade, 29.7 fumble, 61.2 run blocking, and 62.5 special teams grade. So he played 423 offensive snaps. 281 of these was a receiver, and then 42 was a run blocker. Played 1 snap in the backfield, 2 as an inline tight end, 304 in the slot, and 115 out wide. He had 28 catches on 36 targets for 532 yards and 3 touchdowns, which equates to 146.5 passer rating when targeted. He had a 0% drop rate, which is insane. A 71.4% contested catch success rate, 4 forced missed tackles, 1 fumble, 3 penalties. He played 20.6% of his snaps out wide, exactly 79% in the slot, and then 0.4 as an inside tight end. He also played 85 special team snaps, 0 tackles and 1 penalty on them. Because I know Matt, obviously, as you said, profiled him before and watched the Texas A&M game. I wanted to deep dive a bit more. So I watched the other 2 that Caddy's had on him for this show, which was against LSU and then Ole Miss, because obviously people might remember my massive freak out about it and then the comments that Brad made about the press conference. But putting that aside, just looking at the player, So against LSU, he got a 63.1 offensive grade, 60.3 receiving, 72.6 run blocking. He caught his one target for 14 yards. And in that game, he played 22.2% of his snaps outright, and then the rest to 77.8 in the slot. Against Ole Miss, he said 63.6 offensive grade, 61.2 receiving, 78.9 run blocking. He caught 3 of his 4 targets for 51 yards and no touchdowns. He played all of his snaps in the slot. And this was the game that got him the really bad fumble grade, because this was his one fumble on the season, came against Ole Miss. So run blocking wise, just time and time again, willing, able, not really many notes on him there from what I could see. Just did what he needed to do. Maybe a few technique things to be picked out, but with my look at him, I was looking more for the receiving stuff we knew come into the based on Brad's comments. We knew he's going to be a good sort of run blocker. I needed to see what we could get from his receiver. And luckily for me, the first 2 plays of the game against LSU, he runs the exact route I was looking for X receivers. You guys have heard me talk about it time and time again. The Josh Reynolds route, that 10 to 15 yard dig in route, ran it twice, literally the first 2 plays of the LSU game. And while there was some slight rounding on the cut, so instead of being that sort of nice sharp cut that you really want to see, it was a bit more rounded. It was almost like a car turning the corner rather than a receiver running a route. It still looks pretty good, even if it was from a slot alignment rather than from out wide. He also did run a really weird out from the slot a couple of plays later, where he runs around the slot corner rather than through him, trying to get him out the way. He's like, nah, I can see you're there. I'm just going to go around you. Like, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get them moving rather than you move around them. A few plays later, though, does run a really good in route, lot sharper cut on that. So the technique is there. It's just getting more consistent with him. On his first outside route against LSU, it was a simple 5 hooks of 5 yards turnaround, but he does have the awareness to take an extra step on it. So he turns, takes a step back, so then he is right in front of, behind the line to gain, as in, so he's got that extra yard. So if he's targeted, he gets the first down. He also turns towards the QB rather than just straight back. So just good technique wise, obviously being a former QB himself, probably knows what a QB wants and those routes. So he does it, which is good to see, because that's something we really want. But it was obviously not the first read on the play, because instead the Arkansas QB targets the underneath route and doesn't get the first down. Again, because maybe that former QB experience, he racks really well on scramble drills, tries to get himself open against zone, against man in those situations, but doesn't really get targeted, unfortunately, in the LSU game. His only target and catch in the LSU game was on the intermediate dig I was looking for. The ball comes in just on the cut, though, so instead of being the intermediate dig, it turns into a really deep hook route. So, again, maybe it wasn't a dig, but from what the way I could see it happening, it was. But that is a really good catch. Gets the ball, receiver, the defender's behind him, he shields the ball with his body, makes the catch, which was good to see. And then that was pretty much it for the LSU game, unfortunately, with his receiving. In the Ole Miss game, he had a very, very good contested catch between 2 defenders. At this point, the usual QB for Ole Miss, Green, had left the game because he got hurt on the first drive of that game. So it was the backup who was there. Maybe that explains why he got a few more targets. They might know each other a bit more in terms of the chemistry. So he made a great contested catch there. He also then, in that same drive a few plays later, had a really good catch on the sideline, had a little sort of push off on the defender. So maybe in the NFL that will get called, but he does keep his feet in bounds and make sure that the catch is legal. It's a slight flash of what we can expect from him at the pro level, because that's what he's going to be doing. He's not going to be doing all these weird slot stuff. He's going to be an X receiver for us, spoiler alert. So that's what I wanted to see from him. And the one catch he doesn't make on his target was an overthrow by that backup QB, where he was rolling out into pressure, just tries to throw it to Tessa because he's got the frame, the sort of catch radius to maybe make it just a bit too far in front of him. He had, again, nice cut on a 5 and in from the slot in that game, maybe showing that the route running is there, just needs to be worked on. And then he had a very good stop and go from the slot where the corner just completely bit on him. He just did well to the ball as it was a bit high in the air. Got a good amount of yak on it. but then he fumbles it forwards and it goes out the end zone for a touchback for Ole Miss. Just a really weird turn of events where it was so good, so good, so good, and then it messes up at the end. So obviously he was misused by Arkansas. When he was used outside, it was usually on a short route for a speed slot to run deep past him. So people that play Madden probably know that sort of 5 hook from the X receiver, and then your slot does that sort of 2-way go where it goes up over the corner towards the corner of the end zone. It's that kind of stuff. And then when he's used in the slot, it's basically as a move tight end to think of your Darren Waller for the Raiders when he was good, Evan Ingram, Cole Pitts for the Falcons, those kind of things where he's lined up as a tight end, but it's more as of a receiving tight end rather than a blocking tight end. That's how Arkansas used Tesla most of the time. And then, as I said, with that Ole Miss game, the QB, the usual one, Green, did get hurt in the first drive of the game, came back in for the second drive, but then checked out about halfway through the third quarter, and then the backup was in the rest of the game, which is probably why he got a few more targets, because they might have worked together a bit more in practice, and he was that backup QB's trusted target. So Raz has the comparison for him of, I know some fans might not like it because of what he claimed to be when he came out, and then obviously him used to play for the Bears, but Chase Claypool, that kind of prototypical X receiver with all the tools there. Usage-wise, I'm going to compare him to Jalen Coker for the Panthers last year. Despite being 6'3" and having that X build, Carolina used him in the slot 61.1% of his routes last year. Bit of a weird usage, but that's how the system worked. And in terms of the tools, someone we profiled last year, I know I wasn't exactly high on him, but Xavier Legette, again, you've got all the tools for the perfect X receiver there. It's just, can you put it together? Because the way that Legette was used at South Carolina, he was more of a slot receiver first, was used outside a bit more than Tesla was, but wasn't still his fully game. So those are the kind of things. I know both are Panthers, which is weird, but that's what I saw. So obviously his best fit for us is that depth elemental X behind Tim Patrick. He does need to work on the route tree from the position, because obviously playing in the slot, it's a bit different to playing out wide. The release package versus press, because being a slot receiver, you barely see press coverage for obvious reasons. So he's got to work on his release package. What do I do? Someone should I press man me or stuff like that? And then how to adjust to the sideline consistently, because there were flashes of it. But again, because he didn't do it in college, it was an issue for him at the Senior Bowl, where quite a lot of people he popped onto their sort of radars. He's certainly got the tools to become that X receiver, but can it happen? I don't know. Don't want to bet on it, but with mentors in Tim Patrick for the position, Amon-Ra with the route running, like Amon-Ra is one of the best route runners in the league, in my opinion, and then a great coach, Scotty Montgomery, to do with it. See what he did with young Antonio Brown, for instance. I do have a lot more hope than I did, say, 72 hours ago that Tesla could work out, and maybe the other stuff with the pick could turn out all right. And then in 12 months' time, we're turning around and like, Brad, you did it again.
I do think I said a few things when I broke him down the first time that I now need to put through a different lens, because I think I could have connected the dots a little bit better. So what I said about him is that he's slot only, which is what he basically did at Arkansas, but looking at his skill set and what he was doing, I didn't see something that could translate to the outside. And then I said he only converted from quarterback in 2022. What he's doing is very simple. And I should have connected those two dots and said he is running close to the line of scrimmage because that's where he's seen the majority of his game. Obviously, from quarterback, close to the line of scrimmage is a similar viewpoint. But also, he's running simple routes because he's still learning his craft. Okay,
Yeah.
So by that virtue, learning outside skill set could also happen. It's just not there yet. They predominantly want him to play inside because that suited them and him. So I think with me saying he's slot only at that time, I think that's probably in error. But I think banking on it working is a step too far for me right now.
Yeah.
There's going to be some value from him no matter what. I think the floor is relatively good. I mean, he's a third rounder. No matter what you gave up for him, he's a third rounder. And if what you get from him is a cool special teamer with wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 ability, fine. That is what you want to get from him. He might get, I don't know, 30 catches a year and play full-time special teams. That would be fine. Disappointing. But, That's what you would expect from someone at the top of the third round, potentially. You know, not everyone drafts like Brad, the majority of third round picks. That's what their career is.
Mm-hmm.
But the upside of what he could bring is so high. Like you said, a little bit more refinement in his breaks, especially with those dig routes. That will go a huge way to him being able to live on the outside. He's got to learn how to beat press man. That's the biggest hurdle for him to cross. If he can start doing that, he can live. He can absolutely live. All right, I think we're going to move it on to our next guy. And that guy is going to be Miles Frazier. I just need to type up the blooming thing because I am inadequate as the host. But there we go. Miles Frazier. Allowed 13 pressures a season, but no sacks. Run blocking grade of 63.9. Pass blocking grade of 88. Was a 2-year player at Florida International. One as a redshirt and then more full-time starter for transferring to LSU. He was a left tackle at Florida International and was a freshman All-American in his year playing in 2021. And then played both guard spots for LSU as well as playing the bowl game at right tackle after people declared or opted out or transferred or what have you. So, and actually acquitted himself very well at right tackle, which was quite interesting. So Frazier, his Braz 9.3, hand size 9, arm length 32 3/4. So he's near that 33 inch arms, which is the sort of thing you'd look at if you want to get some sort of tackle play in there. 6'5.5", 317 pounds, explosive, strong, pretty quick, fairly agile, and position versatile. So interesting cat. 70.3 PFF grade in this most recent season. Graduated LSU in 2024 in sports administration. Was a 3-star recruit from Milford Academy Prep in New Berlin, New York, and it's from Camden, New Jersey. He only allowed 4 sacks in his LSU career the last 3 seasons and 32 pressures at either of those interior spots. This is one of the most interesting picks of the draft for me for the Lions because I think it has the ability to surprise people the most. You know, this guy's a 5th rounder, Ratledge is a 2nd rounder. But the difference between their two skill sets could not be more night and day. While with Ratledge, you've got the rogue grader run blocker who has work to do at pass blocking. With Miles Frazier, you have a lot of work to do with his run blocking. And of course, what do the Lions like to hang their hat on? It's the run blocking. But when you have a look at his pass blocking ability, you're looking at someone, and I do not say this lightly, I think you're looking at someone who might be in the top 5 Lions offensive linemen for pass blocking already, with no coaching whatsoever. This guy is an exceptionally high quality pass blocker. He rarely, if ever, got beaten. There was a few pressures up given there, as you just heard, but there are so many instances on tape. I can't tell you how many in the 2 or 3 games that I've watched of him, where he's not blocking not 1, not 2, but 3 people on 1 rep. Like, Nussmeier liked to hang on to the ball a little bit back there at LSU last year. And I'm not sure who the right tackle was, but he got beaten quite often in the games that I watched. Ash, you might be able to tell me in a minute. But Frazier at that right guard spot did a great job being able to read what the defensive play was going to be, who was going to stunt, which guy was coming. Do I just need to sit back in my gap? If I'm not blocking anyone, what do I go and do now? Where do I go and find work? Do I just need to retreat with my centre and my right tackle so in case one of them get beat, I can go and help them? Really heads up thinking man's football player. So, you know, quite often he would have his own man to block. That guy would then bail and try and run to one of the other sides of the line. So he'd then chip the guy going for the centre, and then the right tackle would get beat, and he'd go and get that guy too. I mean, off the chart good play. Anchor was really good. He very rarely got rocked. When he was set back, was able to re-establish his anchor very, very well. I could not be higher on Miles Frazier as a pass blocker. I will say, with his size and his height, he does look lanky. I am surprised that his anchor is as good as it is. One of my fears might be that if you have someone with more power in their punch, will they give him trouble? It's one of the reasons why I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions ask him to put on a little bit of weight. Maybe just £10, but I think it would help with his anchor in the past, but also really help his run game. Because one of the reasons why I think he has trouble was several things actually in the run game. One, despite his athleticism, which is clearly good, he struggles moving laterally. No, not in pass pro. Doesn't seem to affect him when he's just in his gap. But when he's having to get upfield to get to the second level to block someone, if he's playing the pulling lineman, which he did a little bit at LSU, it looks a little bit laboured. It's really not his thing. If you're going to run any sort of stretch plays, I would worry about that with him in the formation, just because I don't know whether he's going to be able to keep up with it. All of that means that sometimes he misses his spots, misses his assignments that he needs to get to. Not that it's a missed assignment, it's just that sometimes physically he may just not be capable of that. The other thing with him is that the punch in run blocking, like timing when he's hitting people, is not perfect. His hand usage is pretty inconsistent, but he just lacks a little bit of mass for his size. Because he's 6'5.5", he needs to get a little bit lower in the run blocking and try and get underneath people and push. He just plays a little bit high. But also, when you are 6'6", it's not strange to be like 330, 335, 340 pounds sometimes. But he's a lean looking 317 pounds. He looks lanky. It's so weird to see someone like that. But yeah, so the other thing with him in both run and pass, but mainly in run, is because he slightly misses his assignments, he can leave a trailing arm out there, which might get pings for holding every now and again. I wouldn't be surprised to see him be a little bit of a penalty machine in the run. Just one of those things that you really need to coach out of him, because he can't be doing, especially when plays go well and a hand goes out there, you're like, no, don't do that. Other than that, I'm very excited about this pick. He is a terrific foil for Ratledge, because they're so opposed. If you could combine their best traits, you'd have the best guard prospect of the last decade. I mean, it's fantastic to watch. And it makes it so hard to project what to do. Because of his skill set, for me, he projects in at left guard, even though he's been playing majority right guard at LSU recently. Just the sort of, the Lions like to have their finesse pass blocking players on the left-hand side, their power run blocking players on the right-hand side. Obviously, that didn't happen last year with Glasgow being on the right-hand side, when he's probably more suited to the left for me. But that is what it is. So, Miles will work on both sides. It's fine. He's not a perfect right guard, but clearly he's made it work at LSU. Ash, have you watched much of Miles Frazier?
I have watched 2 games of him before. I give you one guess to who the opponent was for those games. Both games did pretty well. I do agree with the assessment. He will, in our scheme, he probably does fit in better at left guard. I will obviously, unfortunately, have to correct you that Glasgow was the left guard last season. It was like the right guard.
Oh yes, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah. But Glasgow has played right guard for us before. People are saying that is the better fit for him, because obviously he did make that change to left guard. But
the thing is, it's a really weird mix, because I see him more of a finesse player than a power player, but he's a better right guard than he is left guard. It's a geographical thing for him rather than a stylistic thing for the Lions. That's what I should have said.
Yeah. But yeah, you're completely right. But yeah, in our scheme, he does fit better at that left guard position, not because obviously just he's a more finesseful player, but yeah, that's where we need the pass blocking. You can see, people can see obviously how our line set up. Decker, Frazier for now, let's say, and then Ragnow, good pass blocking set. Ragnow, Ratledge, so that's your power right hand side. It's just how it works. But yeah, I agree that it may be your take on the tackle as well. which was Emery Jones, who the Ravens took at 93 this past draft, so the third round. Was bad. He did get a 44.1 pass blocking grade in that game that you watched against Ole Miss this past season. Overall 67.4. He is the work in progress tackle out of the two. Obviously, Will Campbell, who went in the verse to the New England Patriots. Thank you, Mike Vrabel, for not being an idiot and actually protecting Drake May. He has had to work on that pass blocking. And the best thing is, I know obviously me and you Def had discussions obviously in our Discord. Brian to join our Discord. I said out the three. Well, obviously because of the interior battle, I can see him and Ratledge, and then potentially Margany getting cross-trained at centre. I think Fraser is the one that's gonna work best for because of his skill set and because of his headiness. As you say, he's played for FIU. He's been a three-year starter. And then at LSU, this is a guy who's been in 2 different systems, has played every position but centre. But the way that our line is, he would fit perfectly at centre, especially if he puts on that 5-10 pounds just to get a bit stockier to deal with the bulkier defensive tackles, which he will face in this division, unfortunately, with obviously the additions the Vikings have made this past season, with the Bears, with some of their guys up front, to go Van Dykstra, for example, the Packers with Devontae Wyatt and Kenny Clark. He will face some of those bigger, bulkier guys who do have the speed that he has faced in the SEC. It could definitely work, and I do really like Fraser. Like, even if he does turn out just to be a Glasgow style backup at all 3 interior spots, but he's never going to be a starter. For where we got him, that's pretty damn good.
It is pretty damn good. I do think that the fact that I'll go on a limb and say he's a liability in the run. I do think that means he can't play day one. Even though he's that good in pass blocking, it's frustrating. Like, you don't change offensive linemen, but realistically, you'd love to play Ratledge for the first half of a game and play Fraser for the second half of a game. Or you play Ratledge until you go behind and you start needing to pass more than you run, and then Fraser comes in to do the pass blocking. I'm not saying we should do that. That sounds like a terrible idea. But in a perfect world where the chemistry is not affected by making those changes, that's the sort of thing you'd like to do because of their varying skill sets.
Can you go back 6 years into the past and tell Matt Patricia that it's a bad idea, please?
Yeah, there we go. Right, let's move this conversation on to our 6th round pick, the edge from Boise State, Ahmed Hassanin. I will get it right, never, but I will keep trying. So Hassanin is a really interesting cat. So obviously this is the one which has got a lot of the Lions fans most excited, because he is an edge player, and I think a lot of it starts with that. Multi-sport athlete, CrossFit, he was the number 1 in Africa when he left in 2018, when he would have been 15, 16 years old. Also did wrestling, boxing, and swimming. He was a 3-star recruit, despite being new to the sport, and he was a 2-time first-team All-Mountain West Conference in 2023. And 2024, he had... hang on a minute. Let me just double check that before I say anything further. He had 62 pressures in this most recent season, with 10 sacks, 17 hits, 35 hurries, 76.9 PFF pressure grade, and 80.3 in run defense. So clearly quite well-rounded when it comes to both pass and run in that respect. RAS grade of 7.08, 32 and a quarter inch arms, 6023, 267, 27 on the bench. Should be expected, that high bench score, given how good he was at CrossFit. Otherwise, relatively athletic, 4.7, 740 yard dash is good, but more pedestrian, 169, 10 yard split. Obviously gets faster in that kind of latter part of his dash, which of course he won't do much of in the pros. That 10-yard split much more important. Pretty agile, 448 shuttle, 7193 3-cone. You'd love to see that 3-cone dip under 7 seconds, but unfortunately not to be. Relatively explosive, 9.5 foot broad, 32 and a quarter vert. So, you know, he's athletic, but he's not wowing you with those stats. But of course, having so little football acumen, maybe the skill set that maybe some of the guys who've been doing it all their lives develop in terms of athleticism, he's not yet got there with it. So I wouldn't necessarily hold that against him. But a few more stats on him. First ever Egyptian drafted, yes. First ever Egyptian in the FBS. So, you know, go down to the college level, they've still never had these guys. Born in Anaheim, California, but grew up in Egypt from the age of 6 after his parents split up. Moved back to California in 2018, convinced by his brother, who was a football coach. Did not speak any English, had never played football, but moved over to play football at the behest of his brother, who he hadn't spoken to since basically they moved away to Egypt. So it had been about 10 years since they'd spoken to each other, and he leapt across the world to do it. There's a fantastic article that I just want to shout out on BroncoNationNews.com. Go and read it about how he came to the country and what his brother did for him and what the coaches have done for him. It's a really fantastic thing to read. So he didn't speak English in 2018. In 2024, he was a team captain of the Boise State Broncos. He also was a finalist of the Jason Witten Collegiate Man of the Year Award, which is an award to honour exemplary leadership by a college player. So this is a guy with exceptionally high character and willing to make a leap of faith. He is someone who's grabbed his opportunity with both hands, and it's a really heartwarming story. But I'll come on to his play on the field in a minute. Stats-wise, Boise State for his entire 4-year college career, 49 games, 119 tackles, 69 of which solo, 35 tackles for loss, 24 sacks, 3 forced fumbles and a fumble recovery. In his most recent season, 14 games, 48 tackles, 28 solos, 16 tackles for a loss, 9.5 sacks, and a fumble recovery. So pretty productive guy considering his lack of experience. I will say that he really dominated against some of the weaker teams on the schedule and did not do as well against some of the better defenses. Just to highlight this, barring Penn State in the playoffs where he had a very good game, his best games were against Washington State, Utah State, San Jose State, and Wyoming. His worst games were against Oregon, UNLV, Oregon State, UNLV again. So some good defenses in there. Good offenses, in there. Some other games where he didn't do so great against poorer opposition. Georgia Southern, Portland. I don't know who Portland are.
I think they're FCS.
I presume Portland, Oregon, just.
Yeah.
But anyway,
coming in as the college guy, does well against the sort of pass-heavy teams, the ones that run the ball a bit more. So UNLV, you've probably heard Anton Roy talk about their go-go system so much. Does a bit worse against, but makes sense considering, again, he hasn't got the discipline of playing football. He can't read and react that well yet to the run, but when he does well, kind of thing.
Yeah. So about him as a player. So if you have heard the phrase "plays with his hair on fire," which I'm pretty sure is what the Lions said about him specifically, that part is 100% true. He rushes with an almost reckless abandon for the safety of himself and others. Sometimes may not be the most endearing trait. He will often try and beat the guy in front of him even when the play has gone in a different direction and he could help, but he still wants to beat the guy in front of him. So he needs to learn a bit more about the game, I think, in terms of being a bit more smart about when to abandon a rush in favour of being more impactful 2 steps to the left of you or 2 steps to the right of you, and not just, but I still have this guy to beat. Just take the fact that you've been stymied by this one, but still go and help your guy make a run tackle. If that guy gets beat, maybe you can cut him off or something like that. Plays on both sides of the end of the line in a 4-3. I do think he'll be a 4-3 edge, so will fit us quite nicely. Really nice initial punch quite often. I do think he plays with quite heavy hands, which is good. He does sometimes work back to the ball. He is looking out for it, so It often comes when he feels like he's going to be winning a rep or is winning a rep. When he feels like he's losing a rep, that's where he kind of zeroes in on trying to beat that guy. Has a swim move, which does work for him. He has got a rip that I quite like too. The rip, he kind of uses quite often. I think that people will kind of see that coming and not quite work. The other thing he does is just bull rush, which at £267, I mean, he's not Izaraku and he's playing at 248 or something. He's got some bulk to him, so it can work. But, he's not going to give a £300 left tackle a huge amount of problems in that regard. I don't think at that weight he might have to put on a little bit more to do that. His explosion off the ball isn't amazing. He's not the fastest off the ball. When he decides he's going to put his foot in the dirt and drive, he's very fast, but that doesn't tend to happen when the ball is snapped. It happens maybe a half a second or a second later than that. So if he decides he's going to go, I'd love to see him just go straight away. Ball rushes for him are quite interesting. He almost plays it like a rugby player. I don't know if he'd ever played rugby in his life, but instead of trying to get underneath a player with both arms and drive upwards, like those offensive lineman, defensive lineman drills where you have like the player on the metal contraption in front of you and you get your arms up and you lift them up like that. For the video guys, there you go. For the guys on audio, sorry about that. He doesn't do that. He drops his shoulder and just drives sometimes, which is very much a rugby move. It's quite effective, but what it does do is it takes your eyes away from what's happening, because you'll then have your eyes to the floor when you drop your shoulder. So you're going to get depth in your rush. You are going to force that player back, and more effectively than an NFL rush. But you're more likely to have just someone running by you, which is not ideal. He does have a good speed to power rush, so when he does put his foot in the ground and go, like I said, he can be quite quick. And when he's able to hit a guy when he's hit that sort of speed, he can translate that to power quite well and actually win very well too. He does combine that with his rip move quite effectively, so he's converting his speed to power and he times it hitting away of that elbow. It's a very powerful combination sometimes. I do think the fact that he plays with his hair on fire contributes a lot to his high missed tackle rate. So he's got a missed tackle rate of 31.5% in 2023 and 22.6% in 2024. That's not going to fly in the NFL. It's not going to fly for Anthony Fitzpatrick, I'll tell you that. He's got a good run defense grade in spite of his poor tackling, and they tend to go a little bit hand in hand, but not entirely. The reason why the run defense is so good is that because he plays with his hair on fighting, when he wins, it's devastating when he gets it right, but he's inconsistent with it and can miss tackles. The other thing about it is it's not really the running backs he has trouble with, it's often wrapping up a quarterback when he wins and he misses the sack. So the 3 missed tackles in the game, the full game that I managed to watch, which is UNLV, because there's no cuss-ups for him, so it was quite difficult to find good tape. He had 3 opportunities to make a sack with only 1 executed, and then he missed a running back tackle, which, to be honest, he had no right trying to get in the first place. He only got there because he saw what was happening and got there in time. The fact that he missed it, I mean, he was a long way away from it anyway, so it's kind of unfair. I do think that the way he sees the game, sometimes he's not in the perfect place, but then he reacts quite well to it, so then he's not quite in position, but he's just about in enough space where he could make the tackle and doesn't, and that contributes to his missed tackle numbers. So I'm taking with a little bit of a pinch of salt. In terms of improvement, he needs to keep his eyes upfield on the ball, on the quarterback, and be able to fight the man in front of him at the same time. And if he can do that, he's going to make a massive leap. That's going to be what allows him to go from fringe rosterable practice squad player up to rotational player potential starter, because the speed is sufficient. The hand usage is inconsistent, but when it works, it works. The effort is absolutely there. The production is there. Like, when he beats you, because he plays like he does, He's going to devastate you. Can he keep that and keep his eyes upfield? It's the biggest conundrum for him. Versatile and being able to play both sides of the line is really nice. 100% effort, can hold the point of attack, so he's not a liability against the run. He also, because he's 6'2.5", 267, a little bit of a lighter guy, can get skinny and get in between offensive linemen and slip through for sacks. So I think there's an opportunity where if he can translate that drive and go that I was talking about and actually do that off the ball, that he could become a good penetration player, and that might translate to more productivity on that part. Otherwise, it's just pass rush moves, which just aren't there right now. So there was one example where he had a nice inside rush, which forced the left tackle to react to what he was doing, a step inside, and then he countered that with an outside spin and beat the man there that way, and it was a very, very clean win. But the outside spin was never tried before, neither was an inside spin, and there were a lot of other pass rush moves that don't exist right now. It's very understandable considering the guy had never even heard of football until 6 years ago. So there's a lot of growth to be had. Right now, he is a fringe roster rule player. I do not want to big this guy up more than he should be because of the fact that I really like him, the fact that he's a great roster and culture fit. All of that factors into the fact that I think he will make it, but he's so raw and so fresh that even if you have the belief that he'll make it and that the ceiling is there, am I comfortable that he will be the best backup edge player that he can be versus his competition? I'm not willing to make that statement yet. If there was a final roster spot and it came down to, let's just pluck a few names from Lions history recently, if it came down to Mitchell Agude and him, it's going to be an interesting choice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there are other players who are in that sort of realm, you know, Al-Qadim Mohammed. Al-Qadim's going to be ahead, isn't he? And Al-Qadim's probably slightly ahead of that, but who's the next player down? It's the Ukwus Agudes, it's, you know, other people like that. Nate Lynn. I think he'll be in that mix. He's definitely a project. I think his ceiling is higher than all of those guys, and we've shown a willingness to give these players time, so I think they will. But he's not going to be the best of all of those. He won't be the worst either. It's an interesting evaluation, and it's going to be hard all the way through. I realise I've had my graphic up the whole time, so people can't see our lovely faces. Apologies for that. Anyway, Ash, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, but I agree. He's very much like what we said with Tesla. He is that at the defensive end position where he's a raw ball of clay. You've got all this sort of like physical ability and burst and all that. It's just getting the sort of the specifics down. And the good news is obviously him being relatively new to football. I know obviously you referenced the article from Bronco, the Boise State site. I also push people to go read Nolan Bianchi's piece for the Detroit News as well. Such a good piece on him. Obviously, talks to Danielson, who is the Boise State head coach now, who was the defensive line coach and defensive coordinator. Talks to both the brother who brought him over, but also his older sister Gigi, who people might know she was on the cover of Times magazine, for example, for God's sake, covering the Arab Revolution of 2011. He's got the fact that he's only been playing the sport really for 6-7 years, and he's gone from literally sacking a QB and bringing him down by the face mask because he thought that was okay and he didn't know better, to team captain, one of the best pressure getters over the past 2 seasons of anyone in this draft class and in the FBS. All these sacks, the progression is there, and to give him to Casey Rogers, who can take those sort of athletic projects and make stuff of them. So I'm thinking, obviously, my favorite defensive tackle from a couple of years ago, Kalijah Cansey, turning him from a raw defensive tackle who, if he didn't with his first step, didn't really have anything else, to one of the best defensive tackles at the free tech position in the league right now, especially in the young class. Yaya Diaby, Jose Ramirez, all these kind of athletic guys, turn them into something where they can play in the league and stick around. he could do that here with Hassanin, and then he's got good people to learn from. With, I know obviously people theorize Josh Pascal will be on his way out, but there's someone who knows how to run defend from the edge position to let him learn from him. Aidan Hutchinson, all these people, he's going to have such a wealth of people to learn from. Hell, Derek Barnes, all these, you're saying like the sort of person that you could stick him at the Samson position sometimes on certain packages, and yeah, just use that right point and shoot, right, shoot this gap, see if he can get to the QB or the running back. It's the kind of perfect system for him where, yeah, he probably will be, at least this year, a fringe roster player. Probably be like player 50, 51, 52, 53 on the roster. But because of that level upside, we've seen with James Houston a couple of years ago, even if he has to start out in that kind of role where, yeah, he plays 10 snaps a game, but over time development will get there to the point where he might be next year edge 3, edge 4. We'll probably still will be looking at someone consistently opposite Aidan, but as that sort of third edge rusher, that first one off the bench, if you get that for where we're taking him, and that certainly isn't the range of possibilities, it's a slam dunk pick. And even if he is edge 4, he's someone you only designated pass rusher. Again, where you've got him, that's a starting point is really good. And then, yeah, work on the run defense. And he's someone you can trust on all 3 downs, but he's not the first guy you call on. Still really damn good. So I'm really pulling for the guy, obviously, considering he says he wants to die. Like, obviously, he will die for Dan Campbell, and that to win over the Hearts. And what a perfect place for him to come to, not only in the fit in terms of the team, but also coming to the city that's got the biggest Arab American population of anywhere in the country. He will be such a perfect fit into the Detroit culture as well. The same way that Jameis fit himself in, the same way that Kirby's fit himself in. He's gonna slide in and just be so happy here, I think.
All right, let's move it on to your last player, our penultimate player, which is 7th round pick 230 safety Dan Jackson of Georgia.
Yep. So Dan Jackson, 6 foot, 194 pounds, super senior, 24 years old, has spent 6 years at Georgia. So the first couple of years, he was a walk-on and a member of their sort of scout team. So people who don't know, the scout team is obviously what we like to use the practice squad for, but before the games, they still go through a workout and all that. They still do stuff. So he's basically juggling, being on basically their version of the practice squad, doing all these workouts and school work at the same time. And by the time we get to 2024 this past season, he's become a team captain. He's a starter for them. That kind of journey in itself is amazing. So the Raz, 7.28 as a true safety. So one of the new things Raz has got is they've got these new positional categories because of the role he's probably going to play here. Looking at both, so that combines both free safety and strong safety. So free safety is a 7 flat, strong safety 7.51. But as a true safety, so looking at both, great speed, good explosion, okay agility, poor size because, 194 pounds at 6 foot, that is a bit light for a safety. PFF grades this past season, 59.6 defensive grade, 47.2 run defense, 58.1 tackling, 61.2 pass rush, 65.7 coverage, but 88.7 special teams grade. 706 defensive snaps, 286 were in run defense, 409 in coverage, and an 11 as a pass rusher. He played 13 on the defensive line, 179 in the box, 401 as a free safety, 107 in the slot, and then 5 at wide corner. He was targeted 33 times this past season, allowed a completion rate of 69.7% for 7.3 yards reception, no touchdowns allowed, 2 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, 56.3 passer rating when targeted. He made 53 solo tackles, had a further 9 assisted, did miss 15 though, so that's a 19.5 missed tackle rate, not good. 18 run stops, 1 forced fumble. He also did have 1 pressure on the season, which was a hurry. He did also concede 1 penalty on defense, but on special teams, he played 174 snaps. He made 1 tackle, 0 assisted tackles, 0 penalties, and was one of the best special teamers in this class. I'll give you a guess why the team picked him. So this past season, I watched his game against Clemson because, again, ACC bias for me. 71.9 defensive grade, 65.7 run defense, 83.3 tackling, 71.8 coverage grade. He played 45 snaps, 19 in run defense, 26 in coverage. And then he also made 4 solo tackles, 2 of which were run stops. And he was targeted twice, allowed 1 catch for 16 yards. So I would like to start off by saying Georgia screwed him over with their scheme because they used him a lot in pre-snap motions from the split safety looks at him and Malachi Starks would line up basically in cover two. And then just before the snap, they would rotate. So one would come down into the box, one would go up into free safety, which sometimes meant that because of those rotations, they were a second or two late to reading the play because having to focus on rotating. It's also because they played them 15 yards off the line of scrimmage. Again, they had more ground to cover to get to the plays. If so, the amount of times that they would really run and then they'd have to run 17 yards to go tackle the guy when if they play them even 5 yards short or further, they'd get there a lot faster. They kind of disco over their safeties, which is why part of why Malachi Starks fell in this draft and partly why Dan Jackson's looked at so poorly in this class. But he has the instincts, which probably comes from that, as I say, that 6 years at Georgia. He's been there, done that, seen every kind of play. And so his instincts come out time and time again. So literally the first play, he's covering Jake Brinstall, the Clemson tight end, and he reads the out from him really damn well. And he has good route squeeze. So what I call route squeeze is that sort of read and react to a route. So, for example, he sees Brinstall running a 10 and out. He's there, he gets there, he's got the athleticism to make up that sort of extra bit of yardage, and he's there to sort of, if the catch is made, tackle him. It was a drop by Bringstall, fortunately. And then literally a couple of plays later, reads a similar kind of thing. So Bringstall's running a 10 and hook. So run 10 yards, turn back to the QB, catch the ball. Reads it really damn well, crashing down from a sort of deep slot robber position, which is rotating from that split shell from. If he was a bit closer, he might have been able to jump that ball and maybe break it up or get an interception. But again, because he's 15 yards off the line of scrimmage, it takes him a bit longer to get there, and he just is able to make the tackle. And he's also able to potentially make the tackle on Bringstall again later on the drop ball. But again, could have broke it up, could have made an interception if he was closer. When he is in that sort of deep safety position, he flows really well with traffic. So there's a couple of times where Clemson were running or plays that everyone would run towards the left. He's sort of following it. Right, okay, catch is made. Oh, he's been wrapped up, but he's in that position to be that last line of defense, which is what Georgia wants from their safeties. So he's really good at doing that. There was also a play where the slot receiver motions from their left-hand side to the right-hand side of the formation, and orbit motion goes on a wheel route, just erases that slot receiver from the play completely. Such good coverage on it. It was lovely to see. And then again, time and time again, reads crossing routes really well. So there was one where the Z receiver comes across the formation after the snap on a crosser, doesn't get confused, just sticks with him, covers him, eliminates him from the play. And then he also reads screens really well. So when he does read it before the snap, which he did here, just lays a number on the slot tunnel screen. So as soon as the receiver's got 2 yards, Jackson just lays him out. It was really fun to see. In run defense, again, can read it well. So reads Klubnik scrambling on a play really well, gets in position to wrap up if the initial tackle wasn't made. A couple of times that happens with the back and with the QB scrambles. Is one thing that maybe dings him from PFF, but for me was a good thing, is the fact that he would consistently see a guard coming out or tight end and would choose to take on that block because then that opens up the back four or the QB scrambling for the linebacker to make the play. He's very unselfish in that way, in that, oh yeah, I know in our scheme I'm supposed to take on this block so Jalen Walker can make the tackle. And he does it. And sometimes he's even then, either he's on the block and the tackle fails, he's then able to reach an arm out and tackle the back himself. So he's got that kind of thing, but because he's taken out that block, I think quite a lot of places like PFF will see that as a negative because, like, why are you running yourself onto the block? Not seeing that maybe he's doing it to free up someone else to make the play rather than them get on the block and he make it. It's very unselfish in that way. He's also unselfish. So there was a tackle late on Klubnik where he scrambles and he flies in to make it, but he just sees it he's tackled like 2 yards from the line of scrimmage by Jalen Walker. You can literally see him on the tape jumping up for joy and celebrating it. He's that kind of unselfish guy. He's very happy to celebrate his teammates. And he's also very good at communicating with them. So you see time and time again, him pointing to them saying, oh yeah, this is your guy on this, which again comes from the 6 years of experience, probably also comes with his team captain role in that last season. And he's trusted that experience because of that. So overall for us, probably will start as an instant special teams contributor, of course, because we love our special teams here. But he will also be able to contribute in free safety sets, in my opinion. While he can probably be back up both Branch and Kirby, he's probably a slightly better fit for the Kirby role because of his experience there. So again, as I said, this past season he played over 400 snaps at free safety, but only 200-ish, about 250-ish in the Branch role. So he's more experienced in that Kirby role, but he can play the Branch role if you need him to. He can maybe grow into a consistent free contributor as that third safety guy over time in the right system. Kind of. So my comparison for him is one Thornhill, who was a pick for the Kansas City Chiefs, was on the Browns last season, a versatile safety who's probably better at that safety free, but can spot start when needed. But he's never going to surpass Kirby or Branch, unfortunately, which you don't expect from where he was picked. But as a guy who, if we want to do some more free safety sets, you can stick out there for 10, 15 snaps a game on defense and then plug him in at gunner on special teams. You can't ask much more from Dan Jackson, and he'll happily take on that role for us.
He's a really interesting guy, clearly very smart. I love the trigger in little swing passes or oh my god, in the screen game, he seems to be very adept at triggering on that, not unlike Brian Branch when he goes to the line of scrimmage. He's kind of got that sort of sight in him. It's really tough, obviously, where he's drafted in terms of at round 7. He's going to be fighting for a roster spot. Does he get there? And we've got such depth now, especially in that sort of DB linebacker position, that he might find himself going up for a roster spot against Anthony Pittman, Rock Ya-Sin, Lauren Strickland, maybe. Because if Avonte Maddox does come back to safety, and either Maurice Norris or Lauren Strickland are already entrenched in there, can you really carry Dan Jackson? I really think it could be a straight battle between him and either Rock Ya-Sin or Anthony Pittman for a roster spot. So, the path to the roster is difficult for him, but the thing he can hang his hat on is something that we really value in being an elite special teams player. If that's all he provides to us, that's still a good route to the roster as a 7th round pick. So I'm bullish on what he can do, and then I do think he's got safety upside, as you've adequately said, so I won't harp on the point, but there we go. All right, we are coming on then to our last guy now, who is Dominic Lovett. Dominic Lovett from Georgia as well, who is an interesting catch, shall we say. Slot wide receiver, senior for Georgia, 5'10", 185, 31 3/8 arm length, 65.8 PFF grade this year, 6.66 RAS score, 4.4 40-yard dash, so pretty quick guy, 47 in the shuttle, which is average, and averagely explosive as well. So small, light, pretty fast, but not to the most explosive or agile. And that really shows up on tape. So if you watch some of his games, despite having 4.4 speed apparently in a straight line, doesn't really show up in his play speed. He plays significantly slower than that. Dare I say, slightly pedestrian. In terms of him as a person, he was originally a 4-star recruit from East St. Louis Senior High School in Illinois. He originally committed to Arizona State before flipping to Missouri. He was 2022 All-SEC first team by the Associated Press at Missouri. I think he was second team for the other press people. Then transferred to Georgia in his Georgia career. 113 receptions for 1,220 yards, 10.8 yards per catch, and 10 touchdowns. He only paid punt coverage for Georgia. Otherwise, he has no special teams experience whatsoever in his career. So extremely limited special teams upside for this guy. And he is definitely a slot-only player. He only played 22% of the snaps out wide. And that's bolstered by in his first year at Missouri playing 77% out wide. And then that fell to 11% in this current year with 87% on the outside and 2% in line. So with that height and weight, comes that fact that he kind of has to be in that slot. I'll try and be as kind as I can. He is a man who clearly is a gritty guy who tries very hard. I can see why the Lions like him and think there's upside there. For me, not particularly explosive. I would say average. Not particularly fast, at least not on tape. I would say average. He's an okay route runner. He tries with blocking. I will say that he seems to have good feel for zone coverage. But given his height and weight, that's the only way he's going to win in the NFL. Now, he wins about 50% of his contested catches, and he was given some chance to do contested catches at Georgia, mainly because they weren't a great passing or receiving team last year, so just had to give whatever they could a try. And he acquitted himself fairly well in that, so maybe there's some upside there, which I'm not particularly high on, to be honest, but there you go. Shall I just cut to the chase here? I don't see much ceiling. And whilst I see a pretty high floor, because what he does now is fine, you've got, for me, another Tom Kennedy here. And, Tom Kennedy is still here, despite everything. He's the most average of average Joes when it comes to being an NFL player, which is obviously the elite of the elite. But, for me, Dominic Lovett is someone who's going to find a career playing on special teams wherever he does around the league. And I think that people are going to value the fact that he can come in the slot and he'll make a couple of catches a game. He'll probably run a 5-yard curl, sit down in that gap, make a catch, and sometimes that'll move the chains. And that has some value, especially when you have injury-depleted rosters. But we are deep in the slot as a team. He can't go outside. We've already drafted Tesla, who we've just said, at least for the moment, is going to be learning outside and knows the slot quite well. But then we've got Amon-Ra, who likes to play the slot. Slam Laporta is obviously going to play some time in the slot. We've got Khalif Raymond to feed. And then there are other players who are going to be snapping at Lovett's heels as well. Tom Kennedy will have something to say about this. He's going to be a hard one for me, not only to make the roster, but to make the practice squad. There are going to be plenty of players who believe that they will be better than this guy when it comes to athleticism, when it comes to something to hang your hat on, which frankly I just don't see with him. I watched the Kentucky game with him, and I've seen other bits and pieces. He had 6 or 7 for 89. 4 of the catches were behind the line of scrimmage, and half those receiving yards were in a garbage time throw at the end of the first half with 80 yards to go when they just played prevent defense, and they had no chance to stop him gaining almost 50 yards, but no chance to score. So it was empty yards for me. That was the best game he had all year, apparently, but it just wasn't remarkable at all. And yeah, anyway. Ash, have you seen anything from Dominic Lovett?
Only seen tiny little bits of him because obviously certain team played Georgia in a bowl game at the end of not this college season, but the college season before. He did play 31 snaps in that game and did pretty well off the top of my head. Yeah, 75% catch rate, 1 touchdown, 38 yards. I think with the way we picked him, it was just basically us being like, okay, he's a prize to UDFA. Let's use a draft pick to get him. It's that kind of range. They liked him. Obviously, nobody's got some good experience. They just want to maybe try him out there. Maybe they are hoping that they can teach him the return stuff because I know obviously he's got the speed for days. He's got the stuff there, but because he hasn't done the kick return, they might need to teach him it. That's the only reason I can see us taking him, really, because I know Khalif's obviously on the last year of his contract, especially with the renegotiation we did with him that moves all the money around. This could be us just trying to dart throw, right? Okay, let's bring him into camp, see if we can teach him the return stuff. If we can, there's our long-term returner sorted. If not, it's a 7th round pick, worse things have happened. But that's his only path to the roster, is learning it because, yeah, we've got all the gunners. We've got Khalil Dorsey. Dan Jackson can do it. Rocky Singh can do it. Maddox can do it now. He's been taught that last year in Philly. We've got enough guys there who can do the gooding stuff out. Breakstraw might carve out a role doing that, especially if he is like sort of corner four on the team. If he doesn't beat out Meek and Camp, Lovett is in a tough situation, but again, pick 246. Can't really complain, as I say. It's just a beauty. It's just a dart throw at UDFA. So we take it, and then hopefully this time next week, with all the reports coming out of rookie mini camp, we could get proven absolutely wrong, and I'd love that. But the balance of probability is this was just a dart throw, and it doesn't work out.
Mm. Right, 2 very swift questions before we get out of here. Attila the Hun asks, can Dan Jackson and/or Ahmed Hassanin, develop if they never see the field? Can they get enough reps in practice, or will the coaches give them a chance if they earn it? I mean, for me, if they earn it, they earn it. That is like a tautology in itself. If the question is more, how do they develop if they're not taking snaps in games? I agree with you. It's exceptionally difficult. There's a reason why, rookie quarterbacks, when they're taken in round 1, are pushed to start nowadays rather than sit, because they learn quickest on the playing field, not on the practice field. That said, there's no chance of... players do develop when they're not starters or when they're not seeing reps. It does happen. And especially for me, when they're as raw as Hassanin, there's a chance for that. Dan Jackson, not so much. Insofar as he's done 6 years at Georgia, there's only so much practicing's going to help him at this point.
Yeah, so Jackson, he will probably get snaps anyway as a safety free, because I know obviously we've got Strickland, we've got Maddox there, we've got Maurice Norris there, but for me, Jackson just offers that higher floor to the others, and in the special team, so he can. Hassanin, I think he will get reps, as I say. He'll probably play that James Houston role that we've seen with him while he develops the run defense and that in sort of practice, because that's his thing. It is just we love the playing with your hair on fire, but against the run, sometimes you do just need to hold the edge, as much as we hate that with certain players. It's just a matter of technique, which you can do in practice. And then with Jackson, it's just his ceiling is that safety free. So he will probably play that role, but he's never going to improve in that, even if he is a starter, just because he's reached his ceiling. He's 24. He's got 6 years at Georgia, and he's made of ascent there. But it's not much more you can get out of him, aside from suddenly the NFL are proving bionics, and you put super hips in him that you can bend like Mr. Fantastic, and then he can do that. He's reached his ceiling.
And then Dat Fan Mans asks, hypothetically, Hassanin versus Manu in a best of 7 one-on-one pass rush drill right now. Who have you got winning? What's the result? Frankly, for me, Manu is developing and he's been there a year. But when you have raw edge rusher versus raw tackle, the raw edge rusher is normally getting there because of tools, whereas the raw offensive lineman has to try and counter those raw tools with skills he's not yet learned. So even though you'll have some devastating wins on both sides, I would lean on the defender at this stage.
Hassanin 5-2 win, because he's less raw. I know, obviously, it's all this.
He is less raw. It's true.
This is a guy who has produced it for 2 years at the FBS level. That's what I trust. As much as Manu has got the year on him under our scheme and that, he's coming from the G League, with the Canadian, whatever league it is. I think it's the G League. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that's equipped to Div 3, which I know you can come from and do that. There's players that done it. But even then, I trust the guy that you can see. You've seen him done it at a higher level, which he has done. He's played in the college football player, for God's sake. I know it wasn't exactly a winning game for Boise, but he's done that. That's the highest level you can pretty much get to in college.
All right. That's all of our questions. That's our roundup of the 2025 NFL draft class for the Detroit Lions. Next week, we are going to be getting into the UDFA class and taking a look at all the commentary out of rookie minicamp, which will be happening in the next 7 days. As I was saying before, the College Football Podcast is going to be back in about a month's time and is currently doing the work, grinding numbers on all of the new recruits, on all of the transfers in the portal, as conference breakdowns are going to be coming to you starting in June. You can find us on Royal Alliance UK on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And the Facebook group for Worldwide Fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. You can follow us on the website at royalallianceuk.com or ROTLUK.com. Just remains for me to thank Ash for going through these guys with me, and to all of you for listening. We'll see you next week for the UDFA and rookie minicamp stuff. But for now, let's go Lions, One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.